everybody. I am Matt Pamonti. I am joined by our champion, Josh Warsaw.
Thank you.
Congratulations, brother.
Yeah.
It was a really good match to watch. You played probably one of the best players in the room, too, which is always cool to get a dub against someone like Zach Allen or someone with that pedigree. So,
exactly, and a good friend.
Yeah, pretty cool. So tell me a little bit. So it was kind of funny. So there's a million places to eat in every city that we go to. And I just so happened to walk into the place where you and your friends were eating at.
Exactly.
And you're like, oh, yeah, I top forward, blah, blah. And I was like, well, that's cool. And you told me, like, where'd you guys come from?
So we came from Bethesda, Maryland. So I'm from Bethesda, and then two of my friends, one's from Virginia, and then Rockville and Baltimore.
Okay.
And so one of my buddies is getting his PhD in Michigan. So we planned this about a week ago, probably last Sunday. And we're like, all right, like we'll meet you in Ann Arbor where he goes to Michigan, and then we'll drive up to Lansing. Everyone backed out. I'd have to drive 8.5 hours alone. Okay. So, and then Tuesday, I convinced one of my buddies. I was like, you got to come. Yeah. And he's like, all right, I'll come. And so I had a buddy to drive with. Long story short, I drove the whole way.
Amazing. That's how all great Magic stories start, man. It's like, you're like, everybody's like, yeah, we're in. There's 6 of us in this car. It's going to be sweet. And then people are like, nah, I can't go. I don't want to go. I'm not going. You're like, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to book a flight? Am I going by myself? Yeah. And then somebody eventually is like, I'll come and I'll help you drive. Yeah. And then they don't help you drive. It's just crazy how all Magic stories start. Like, so long travel, but certainly worth it, right?
Certainly worth it, yeah. And, I've had, a lot of people supporting me, even texting my parents. Yeah. They've been watching me on the stream.
Cool. That's
cool, they root for me.
That's sweet. That's sweet. So, Energy Circuit. So, you got 30 points today, which is the best possible start you can have to Season 2. And now you're going to be entering into Pioneer as well. Yeah. So, you're off to a really good start. And, our championship at the end of the year is a really little tight tournament. It's really super cool. So, I assume you're going to try and make a little push for it?
I mean, after this, I really would love to. Yeah. I go to school in New Orleans. Go Tulane, roll wave.
All right, roll wave, yeah.
And so, New Orleans is pretty far from the Midwest. Yeah, yeah. But, I got some dineros tonight and, going to go, book some flights probably.
For sure, man. Cool. Well, we'll be happy to see you. So, and you told me this is your first NRG Series event, right?
This is, yeah. First,
so one for one. It's pretty good.
Yeah, 1 for 1. Yeah. I used to grind the SCG circuit pretty heavily because it was on the East Coast. Sure. And then I kind of got word of this through right after COVID because you guys started doing events online. I was watching coverage. And I was like, these look fun as hell. Yeah. And and I was like, let's go to one.
That's cool. Well, congrats on the win. So, your deck is like, so a lot of people are playing this like 4-color mid-range pile blink stuff, whatever. I mentioned to Drake 100,000 times that it's cool to be able to watch like you're the controlling deck sometimes, you're the mid-range deck sometimes. Yeah. And in Game 3 of the finals, I thought was like really showed you're masterful of the deck because you realized that you were the beatdown at that time. You like flash in Endurance, flash in Solitude, flash in Kodal, and it's like, okay, well, like beat these cards or don't.
Yeah, exactly. And like I kind of turned into like a tempo deck. So I kind of like noticed that his hand was kind of clunky. And I like was running out of resources quickly. Sure. Didn't have a Teferi. Like, if he has counter spells, can't really beat those. So I was like, all right, end step, just like flashing stuff. And like that one turn where he counters my Prismatic Ending, and then I just go all in, Fury, exile my Omnath, like only last 2 cards, Eternal Witness, counterspell. And I'm like, we're doing this. And so I attack him down to 6 there, and he plays the Omnath, and he didn't have a counterspell back, and rest is history.
Yeah, you shoved on him, and I was thinking when he's he fetched, and I'm like, well, he's at 1, like he's like cycling through his deck. I'm like, oh my god, there's a Supreme Verdict.
Yeah. Oh my god, he showed me after. I was like,
which is a sweat. Yeah, and I was like, well, if he hits Supreme Verdict, like you're in trouble.
Oh, the game's over.
Yeah, you're probably toast, but. Very masterful. Like, if you guys want to watch like a really great match overall, I think all 3 games were played really well. Yeah. Everybody kind of knew their role. Yeah. And how to pivot from like the control deck going over the top to like you did. You pushed all in and said, here's what I got. Yeah. Either beat it or don't. And it worked out for you. So really cool to watch.
And the deck was amazing all weekend. To talk about my testing a little bit. So starting the week, I was playing Grixis Death Shadow, the canister challenge list. Deck sucked, kind of. I mean, it's good, but not as good as 4-color.
It's not good,
And then I transitioned from that to like a Grixis like old Luris. So like Spire Bluff Canals, Blackleaf Cliffs. Deck sucked. 5-0 to League, but that doesn't mean anything.
Right, what's
and then I was like, let's just play the broken cards.
Yeah, why not?
And like let's play Omnath. Like this card is so good.
Crazy, right?
Like it's insane. And and I literally lost once this weekend, and it was to myself. We went to turns. And I died to a top deck Eldritch Evolution for Geralt's Messenger.
Okay, for the
and I could have beaten it. Yeah. I had one more turn cycle, and I thought I was actually on turn 3, but on turn 1.
Okay.
And I just tried to beat him down, and then
cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So I could have been
good,
out.
Good run. Anything you would change from it? Top of your head?
I think I want some Mystical Disputes in the sideboard.
Yeah.
But
instead of like the Veil of Summers, that's like the flex spot, right?
I mean, the Veils were too good. Yeah. I was playing against Lotus Field round 7.
Okay.
And like he just goes like Teferi minus on your Teferi. I was like, Veil, game's over.
That's
yeah.
That's
and so I think the Veils are good. Chalices are good. I love the 3 Endurances because like you can just turn into the beatdown. It's honestly really nothing I would change. Maybe the verdicts aren't great, but
it's like an insurance policy, right?
Exactly.
So, cool.
Awesome.
All right, sweet. Any last minute before we wrap up? Any shout outs you want to give?
I want to shout out my boys who I drove here with, Alex Rubin, Jeff Carr, and Harry Chacklatter. They're the boys. They've been supporting me, feeding me coffee and water in the finals and stuff. So love you guys. Thanks all.
Cool, man. All right, well, we're going to get out of here again. Congratulations on the dub. We're going to see you at some more events, I'm sure, but really well played. And again, if you want to watch a master class in the 4-color mirror, definitely a great match to watch here from Lansing, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah, see you in Pioneer.
Everybody, welcome back. I'm Mappamonte, joined by Drake Sasser. We're getting ready to kick off round number 5 here in Lansing of some Pioneer. We've had a lot of cool deck lists on camera today. We're going to continue that trend, it sounds like, as we're going to run down to our feature match area here. Our backup has some good stuff too, so I'm really excited that we've been able to showcase several different things rather than just being like 4-color mid-range, for instance, in another format all day long. So we're going to have some Boros Aggro. Looks like we got them mixed up on other sides, but we'll get that fixed for you. Got Boros Aggro versus Rakdos Midrange. We saw this matchup, I believe, earlier, but a little bit different in the deck building selections. Again, a lot of stuff's very customizable right now, so seeing what works and what doesn't work in this week is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd like to highlight, too, that this deck's called Boros Aggro. Notice the Gigantha as a companion. You actually can't play Feather in this deck, so it's not a Boros Feather deck. This is actually just a heroic deck, rather, featuring many of the same cards, but none of the namesake Feather card itself. Maybe suggesting a rename is in order for the Boros decks, but either way, 4 copies of the newly added Illuminator Virtuoso as well.
All right. And that land, I believe, is Takanuma is the name of that one. The Abandoned Mire, I believe that's the name of that card. So I was taking a peek with Thoughtseize and working on Zach's hand a little bit.
Yeah, Thoughtseize is surprisingly good against this. Normally, you'd expect them to be somewhat bad against aggro decks, but the nature of this particular aggro deck, it wants a composition of creatures, lands, and spells, and therefore discard spells are very good at disrupting the mixture. Whichever one that they're short on, you can cut that down even further with the discard spells, and they actually can convert to be pretty good. Although another creature added to the board does mean that Sean's going to have to start paying attention to the board here. Get some of these creatures down before they can be protected by the draw steps. Double red for Stomp. That's a start.
Yeah, Bonecrusher Giant, quite good. Protections. It looks like that's actually, man. It's actually pretty good for Zach, I would say.
I'd say that's very good for Zach. I mean, that's the blind draw. Sean, I don't think knew about that particular card. A protection spell off the tops, basically exactly what Zach was looking for, and is able to cost Sean an additional removal spell, which cannot line up against the 10th District Legionnaire. And now we get to start going to work with things like the Defiant Strikes, Ancestral Angers, and what have you.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Oh, boy. Defiant Strike into Defiant Strike? Well, that's
gonna be a lot of damage.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's the way you want to sequence this. Just Defiant Strikes off the top. And we've seen, I mean, a series of Ancestral Angers, a series of Defiant Strikes just lead to a huge kill out of nowhere earlier in this exact matchup, like you alluded to.
Yeah, decent little chunk of damage here. And
there's a maximized velocity too.
Wow. Favorite Hoplite has been like, I always look at the card and I'm like, there's no way this card's playable. It's actually been pretty good against these Rakdos decks.
Yeah, the preventing damage actually matters a lot against the Stomp. If you target it with any spell and let the trigger resolve, then it, even though it still has 2 toughness, the damage just doesn't work, right? It's damage, not combat damage.
All right, easy enough for Sean. Just picks up a Fatal Push and says, yeah, whatever. Another favorite Hoplite. Looks like there's a stomp looming though. Oh, that's so good for Sean.
That's so good. And you could flash back the maximize velocity, or rather escape or jumpstart. Jeez, so many different out of the graveyard abilities. Escape the maximize velocity, but looks like we actually responded there with the stomp, and now able to deploy Bonecrusher Giant. Sean missing land drops, but actually kind of where he wants to be. Doesn't really need them, and does need the removal spells. Gigantha is going to go ahead and get bought from the companion zone. A nice little extra threat in case you're out of gas, which Zach most certainly is.
Yeah, looks like that's gonna. Man, it's just rough out here for Zach now. And Sean's been a land away from dropping the Chandra for a few turns now. Like finds the land there. And that's going to be pretty good here.
Chandra on an empty board. Have to be somewhat excited about that. Doesn't kill the Gigantha, but Gigantha still needs an additional land from Zach Dubin's side. And Kalitas, the chosen card to play instead. Start recouping some of that life. Also going to be quite good against any future creatures that Zach deploys. Here comes an attack for 7.
Yeah, believe it or not, any of these 4-mana creatures on an empty board or 4-mana plays on an empty board are going to be quite good against Zach's deck. And he's in some trouble, so it looks like Zach's going to go ahead and pick him up. And Sean Ryder picks up game number 1 with the Rakdos Midrange deck. All right, and it's kind of, this is the same thing we saw. We saw Will Kruger play this matchup earlier, and I believe Will Kruger won game number 1, and then I believe the red-white like heroic style deck won game 2 and 3 in the post-board matchup. So be interesting to see what kind of plans both of these players have in comparison to that matchup we watched, I believe, in round number 3.
I believe that's accurate as well. Yeah, so we saw that same dominating performance from the Rakdos midrange deck in game 1. Removal spells just more than enough to take care of all of the creatures from the Boros Aggro / Feather side, the heroic deck, if you will. We can go ahead and call it that. And then out of the sideboard, there was a whole bunch of cards that came into some really, really impressive turns in the sideboard games from the aggro deck. We can take a look and see if Zach Dubin can go ahead and assemble that just like his forerunner, Andrew. And we can take a look here. We have access to a Danto Vanguard. That's a sticky threat. We don't have access to Feather because we do have Gigantha as a companion, but we have some fight as ones, as well as looks like bunch of removal spells and an additional Bonecrusher Giant. So yeah, probably interested in the threats. Maybe a little bit of the
very similar to Andrew Wolteitz's deck. There's no Fiendslayer Paladins in this particular configuration. I think Adonto Vanguard is actually quite good, maybe even better served than Fiendslayer Paladin, because it doesn't seem like the red-black deck puts a bunch of pressure on your life total. So paying 4 life to prevent a removal spell is probably just fine, I would say. And it attacks through pretty easily most of these creatures as well.
Have to agree with you there. Like the cleanup on the creature slots a little bit better in this deck as well, featuring the four copies of Dreadhorde Arcanist, as well as a single Soulscar Mage in addition to the 4 Swiftspears. So I like the Boros Aggro configuration as well, kind of abandoning going all in on the heroic stuff, maybe favoring a little bit more of the actual aggro elements, hence the name. Let's take a look at what Sean Ryder is bringing to the table.
All right, so Sean's got a backup Kalitas. There's a Chandra's Defeat in the board. That's cool. A couple Lava Coils. There's tons of different things here, but not a lot of it looks like it's built for like small creature decks, if I'm being honest here.
Yeah, a very different approach from what we saw from Will Kruger early on. You know, still a couple things you might want to bring in. We saw Will Kruger bring in the Duress, might see that here as well. Lava Coils, Chandra's Defeat, maybe even the Kalitas, since you're playing on killing a lot of creatures. Noxious Grass potentially in the mix as well, but not the same just huge selection of one-for-one spot removal we saw from Will Kruger. And we'll see if maybe you don't need to go so hard on sideboarding and removal spells, as they can be kind of clunky. We'll see if Sean has a little bit of a better setup for the Boros Aggro deck than Will was able to present.
Yeah, and again, like there's not a bunch of extra help in the board. I mean, again, though, the 4 Bonecrusher Giants, there's 5 1-mana removal spells, there's 3 Dreadboards, there's tons of point-and-click removal. So Andrew Wolteitz, I think, got pretty fortunate in his match to draw like runner creature at one point, and which was crazy. But I mean, sometimes you're just going to get a little help from the top of your deck, and you got to capitalize on it. So I think Sean Ryder's the Rakdos deck, I feel like is a good matchup into Boros Aggro, but we're going to find out here and see a little bit more of how this matchup works back and forth. So Zach can lead on a tap land. That can't be a good start.
Yeah, it's interesting. We saw Andrew in some of the sideboard games kind of just sandbag threats, kind of planning to wait to play a threat until he could also hold up protection. I wonder if now the matchup is face up, that's what Zach Dubin was looking to do. And on a turn 2 with a favorite Hoplite, have to imagine that's probably why that card was deployed on turn 2 and not turn 1.
That would make sense. I believe that's a Canyon Slough is that first land there for Sean Ryder. His Castle Lockwing comes in untapped, which I don't know if we've seen that all day, actually.
Yeah, that card has come tapped a lot. Kind of wonder if maybe there's too many of those and not enough swamps. Yeah. Here is a pathway from Zach Dubin. All his lands in are untapped.
Yeah. Zach's off to a
decent start. Beatdowns for 1.
Yeah, 1. Gotcha. Another one. See, this is where Legions end. Legions end, notably not in Sean Ryder's deck.
And no Legions end available for Sean Ryder. Favorite Hoplites, very safe. Fatal Push going to be attempted here. Probably on the end step, if I have to imagine.
It looks like that's where we're at. So favorite Hoplite number 1 goes down. Sean,
no sense protecting a threat that, when you have another one, can go ahead and just go all in on one of the threats.
Yeah. I like the way Zach played that too. Doesn't commit anything to protect it. Just says, I got 1. That's good enough. I got 1 creature. So make sure we get life totals accurate here as well.
And a Lava Coil going after the second favorite Hoplite. See if we have any spell at all to target. We do have a Defiant Strike. That's damage. I believe this gets prevented. That's going to be pretty brutal for Sean Ryder.
Man, this Hoplite's been so good against these red-based removal spells.
Yeah, we were making fun of favorite Hoplite. Look at it now. Just really showing us who's boss.
I know. Man, how can I talk about this thing anymore?
I don't think you can. I think all you can do is say good things about it. You're not allowed to say anything bad about favorite Hoplite for the rest of the day. It's just not possible.
I think I have some leftover emotional damage from when it was in the blue-white heroic deck ages ago, and that thing used to kill me. And I'm like, how does this thing get me? This is ridiculous.
Are you joking? I always got really upset at the 0-4. It's like an 0-4 that just counter. That's all it does. This thing just kills me, and I'm just like, are you kidding me? This thing is just so bad. All right, whatever. I'm done. Fine, you got me. You win. I don't. I'll move along with my life. Because here comes a flurry of spells from Zach Dubin. Homestead Courage representing so much power in one little package. Here comes an attack for 6.
Yeah, just take a third of your life total out. That's fine.
Yeah, see ya. 2 mana up still for protection. You gonna want to try another of those lava coils, tough guy? Doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, seriously, you gotta be nervous to pull the trigger on the red base removal against this deck. And Sean gets up to 4 mana in play, but those 4 mana spells are just not really very appetizing against a 6/6 on the board.
Yeah, notably things like Chandra, which we do kind of label as additional removal spells because they do deal 4 damage. Not good enough at all in the face of a 6/6. Wow. Here's a Bonecrusher Giant.
Yeah, imagine playing a Bonecrusher Giant just face up, not on an adventure
block
against a 6/6. Yeah.
Here, attack for 6. All right, I'll take 6. I'm at 7. Dreadhorde Arcanist to follow up. Beautiful old border Dreadhorde Arcanist. A lot of respect for that.
I love that thing. Yeah, it looks beautiful. Does Zach have
it reminds me of old Magic. Dreadhorde Arcanist is an essay of a card as well. Just a block of text. I love just seeing an old border with a block of text. That really is just old Magic design right there.
Oh yeah, if any card needed the old border, it was definitely that. That looks like, is that the Dreadbore? That's some really strange art Dreadbore. I can't remember what.
Yeah, that's the rock metal album stuff Dreadbore. So we're gonna go ahead and attempt that. From the secret lair. God's Willing in response, going to play a second Bonecrusher Giant. And now Dreadhorde Arcanist is going to be able to untap, threaten a God's Willing on this favorite Hoplite. That'll give protection for red. Looks like Zach Dubin just signaled that. And that is going to be lethal for Sean Ryder. And here we go. This is exactly what we saw earlier.
That's crazy. It just starts off as this paltry little 1/1 for 1 mana. And you're like, oh, yeah, that'll do something later in the game. And before you know it, it's a 6/6, and then it has protection from everything, and you can never damage it because you always have 1 mana to protect it. It's crazy. This card's definitely underrated all-star for this deck. That's so far, in my opinion. Insane.
Have to agree with you, mostly because we're not allowed to say bad things about favorite Hoplite, but I will say
That's
it can be
right.
frustrating losing so much to it. No, a very impressive showing from Zach. Once again, navigating all of these burn spells. Those lava coils, we saw them from the sideboard, but favorite Hoplite still can prevent all damage. And let me tell you, lava coils damage. So a single spell, it can even be a Defiant Strike, shuts down those lava coils. And so despite the real critical massive removal from the red-black mid-range deck, the mana efficiency and these little tricks with things like favorite Hoplite just continue to abuse the removal spell filled Rakdos deck.
Yeah, and I think that's another reason why, in Will Kruger's case, that being able to exile things is a big deal in comparison to just straight damaging them. Like the Legion's End is a huge card, obviously, and they might not load up on them on the board or whatever, but just being able to exile it in general is great. So, man, this card is just being an all-star in these red-based removal decks, and I think it's one of your best starts, really. Is like Zach played that really well. Didn't play it on turn 1, left protection up for it, which is a big deal, like you mentioned. So plays behind curve, plays it on turn 2 with the mana available, and really got rewarded. That thing just went the distance, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with you there. Some impressive stuff. We'll see if game 3 can go a little bit better with the Rakdos deck able to be on the play. If you're enjoying the content, please make sure to follow. We are going to be bringing you Pioneer coverage all day long, including the entirety of the top 8. You're not going to want to miss that. Make sure you're following. Make sure you can see when we're live. And there's a whole lot more tournaments coming to you for the rest of the season. With that, let's go ahead and take a look at game 3 of Rakdos Midrange versus Boros Aggro. Sean Ryder versus Zach Dubin, both players 4-0, looking to improve to 5-0. Here's a Thoughtseize.
Yeah, good start for Sean. This is able to pick apart the hand. Looks like there's one single creature. This is the exact carbon copy of our match in round 3. There's one single creature, and actually goes ahead and takes the God's Willing. So it takes the protection spell here instead of taking the creature.
I like this a lot from Sean Ryder, right? Right, because so think about it. If you just play the creature now, like having seen this, being Zach Dubin and seeing that you just took the creature, you can't play it on turn 1. So okay, you get a turn from that. Sean Ryder can sit there and develop mana, and then here's a follow-up Thoughtseize.
Love this. So now you have to take the creature. So now it makes a lot more sense to me that Sean had double Thoughtseize. So and he probably has a removal spell. So if you take the protection spell, if Zach deploys the creature, you can just have your removal spell. And now he gets kind of paid off for doing that. So
I have to agree. Finding looks like a creature, looks like Soulscar Mage off the top. Zach Dubin. This seems to be the way it goes. The Thoughtseize bug just very repetitive here. And gonna go ahead and fire off a God's Willing on a lava coil. That's a little bit of a better trade for Sean. The favorite Hoplite being able to survive and draw a card from the Defiant Strike. Not the way you want to do it. Trading for another God's Willing at least feels a little bit better, but Zach Dubin able to untap, has free reign with the Soulscar Mage. We'll see what he can assemble.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's a realistic number of damage that Zach can do here? It's probably like between 8 and 10 here, I would assume.
Yeah, I have to imagine when we talk about damage numbers, Ancestral Anger is always a big part of the equation because that card just piles up damage really quickly. But either way, even just a modest hit growing here like we see, looks like 2 prowess triggers plus a point plus another point. 2 more points, I'm sorry. So 3, 4, 5 is the math I got.
Good. There's the Dreadhorde. And now Sean might be in the driver's seat because Zach hit a creature, and now he's just kind of, maybe not on E necessarily, but he needs a creature desperately.
Definitely have to agree there. Bloodtithe Harvester, not a bad follow-up, too. Could represent another removal spell. Also just a fine attacker / blocker. The flexibility of this card is really what gives it its power, gives you a second game object. A Monastery Swiftspear off the top. All right. Take a look at Bloodtithe Harvester. Nice pickup from the Innistrad Crimson Vow set. And 3/2, very aggressively statted. Creates a blood token when it enters. You can sack it. Creature gets -X till end turn, where X is twice the number of blood tokens you control. So this can kill 2 toughness creatures. Monastery Swiftspear coming across for a lot more damage than that. But Sean Ryder able to untap. Monastery Swiftspear with that counter now. 3 toughness. Cannot be killed by the now no longer summoning stick Bloodtithe Harvester.
I was going to say, you got to love that play. You gotta love that play from Zach to outgrow it now while you can. And Sean's in some serious trouble now.
Oh yeah, I think if you're Zach Dubin, seeing your Rakdos Midrange opponent untap, cycle a land for 2 mana, and then crack the blood token, discarding another land, and just go ahead and
Reckless
pass
Rage?
the turn back, you have to smell
Oh,
blood.
it is.
Reckless Rage, that removes the blocker. Now we're at 3 damage. Can we assemble a kill? What do we have? Sean, taking a look.
Sean has a stomp.
Respond with a stomp. That will kill it with the Reckless Rage.
Yeah. Oh, Zach needs a piece to protect it here. Oh, that's a huge play for Sean. Huge play.
Maybe somewhat of a miss sequence. I think that's it's one of the +1/+1 counter effect. At sorcery speed, you can't Homestead Courage. Jeez, I don't know why I couldn't think of it. It looks like a Homestead Courage in hand, right? So if you lead on Homestead Courage first and then fire off the Reckless Rage, you maybe get to keep your Monastery Swiftspear in the face of something like a Stomp.
Yeah, and you're going to do it anyways, right? More likely than not, you're going to Courage it anyways. It seems like.
Yeah, so, maybe Zach Dubin not really having that card on his radar, and now suddenly the Bonecrusher Giant alongside Den of the Bugbear going to go ahead and come across, provided that token was remembered. It looks like it was. That's going to be worth 8 damage.
There's Gigantha. Is it? This is lethal, right? This is lethal.
I think we're 1 short, right? It's 8 plus 1 more from last turn, so we should have 9 coming across. But still, I mean, Zach going to have a lot of trouble with so many bodies on his following turn. Yeah. I'm going to need a haste threat alongside some protection.
That's the end. Wow.
And that's Ryder. It. Zach Dubin is going to lose this game. Sean Ryder winning the 3rd game there. And you have to look at that Reckless Rage Homestead Courage turn.
Yeah, that was the decider. I mean, man, that was just that small little misstep. Just turned the game up on its head. That was crazy. And then and Sean has the creature land, able to turn the corner rather quickly, and you get to see the power, just the power of these things that go on adventure, like Bonecrusher Giant. It's able to remove and then immediately the next turn plays it, so you have a play for the following turn, and then you get to turn the corner and start attacking. Man, that was crazy game. That's a good matchup. That one feels like that's going to be a staple of Pioneer for a long time. Like that. That's going to be one of the classic matchups, and it was really good to watch the back and forth, I think.
I can't agree with you more. A lot of interaction, like I was talking about earlier, as well as it seems like it's very punishing to make mistakes. There's a lot of room to make mistakes, and it looks like, I mean, we saw right there that mistake, literally cost Zach, I think, the entire match. So, mistakes extremely punishing. Really, really cool match to watch. And hopefully we'll have a little bit more Pioneer on the series later this year. Go ahead and take a look at some of our events that are coming up before we take a look at the next round.
Should be a lot of fun. We're going to a lot of new locations. So, again, put them on your calendar.
Louisville, very close to me. Might actually try to make it out to that one in person. Obviously, I'm a little bit remote at the moment. Not a lot of ovens at the convention center. But Louisville is actually one of the closest it's been to me. A little bit further south than I feel like the energy normally goes. So if you're in the south and you haven't been to one of these before, this is your opportunity. Come get a piece of the action. Maybe see me there. Maybe see a Comic-Con there. A lot to do there. Very excited about that event for sure.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. So that's like the furthest southeast we've gone. We're going to go southwest with the St. Louis one, and it's going to be a ton of fun. It's great getting to go to new locations. First time we've been to Lansing. Great turnout. We sold this event out. So it's been amazing. Just, as we keep expanding, more people are coming to events. I mentioned Sean Gallagher drove 10 hours to this event from the Iowa area. It's really cool to watch everybody come through and, come say hi, let us know where you're from, any improvements we can make, things like that. But we're coming around. We're traveling all different places, trying a bunch of locations out, trying formats and different things like that. So definitely value the feedback and everything. So it's been super fun. Lansing's been good. So sounds like we're getting ready to our backup match is still in game 1. Why don't we just do it live? Let's not screw around. Let's just jump right into it live. So we are in game number 1. That's right. I said that. Game number 1 of our backup feature match. So we'll take you down there. And I think Raja Suleiman is actually playing down there. And so Esper Control, no surprise. That's taking a little bit of time to get it done. A lot of sharks on the table against a lot of forests.
What is happening here? I was hoping to catch this here in game 2, but apparently we're going to see the end of game 1, and there is a lot to process in this board state. A Shark Typhoon in play, making sharks Teferi upticking, moving stuff around. Another Teferi going to make another Shark. I have to imagine this looks pretty over for Carson Bouchain. Is that how you say that?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get confirmation on how to pronounce Carson's name. I couldn't imagine not conceding at this point if you're on the Gruul ramp player side. But it's you get 50 minutes, you can do whatever you want with them. So
well, I mean, you're a Gruul ramp deck, right? When you have this many lands in play, basically any extremely good payoff off the top maybe can swing the game in your favor. I have to imagine at this point in the game, it has to involve something like an Ugin the Spirit Dragon alongside no counterspell from Raja's side, which may be a little ambitious at this stage, but it's not like this board state is unbeatable. And all Carson, right. 1 point still not 0.
Come on, Ugin. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, well, Ugin the Spirit Dragon action. You into that kind of stuff?
Is that Atarka the Spirit Dragon? Is that called? What is it? Not the Spirit Dragon. What is it?
Dragon Lord Atarka. Huge. Another standard all-star in its time. Love this card. 5 damage. Divided as you choose. Upon opponents, creatures, and planeswalkers. Can't deal it directly to the opponents, and no burn spell Atarka here. But can take care of the Teferi and I think that 2/2 Shark. And threaten to be able to block the other Shark. But this Memory Deluge is going to make a 4/4 Shark, and that should do it.
I got a good story about Dragon Lord Atarka when once we get in the middle of games here. I got to tell you.
Looks like this game's probably about to end. What you got? Give me some Dragon Lord Atarka stories.
All right, so players are scooping it up. So what's the coolest? Have you ever played Dragon Lord Atarka? Have you ever registered that card like in a tournament before?
Never in a tournament. Played with it in some Cube, and I have played with it a little bit in like some standard testing games, but I don't think I ever registered it in like a Comp RL event.
What's the coolest thing you've ever done with Dragon Lord Atarka? What's the coolest thing you've ever done with it?
Coolest thing I've ever done. I like recurring Nightmared with it in Cube, I think.
That sounds pretty good. So I played a standard event one time, and I played Dragon Lord Atarka, and I also played Eldrazi Displacer, and I Eldrazi Displacered it like several times in a turn, and I was like, all right, we'll just take everything off the board. And then my opponent was
it may take a while, but I'm killing it all.
Yeah. Thanks to my opponent, wherever you're at. I don't remember who it was, but thanks for letting me do that. And they just kind of watched and were like, this is so cool. Like this is amazing. So Eldrazi Displacered one, and it was pretty nuts to say the least.
That's awesome. I love
we're gonna
that.
check out. Yeah, it's pretty good. So we're gonna check out some deck lists here. It sounds like, and we'll be able to bring you these. So we'll get confirmation on Carson's last name, but Gruul Ramp, as you mentioned, there's these Ugin the Spirit Dragons. There's all the natural, the normal things you would expect there to be for Ramp that cultivates necessarily Pilgrimage, and a bunch of Mana Dorks. There's 10 of them here, it looks like. So yeah, World Breakers.
2 copies of Sylvan Carotid to join the Elves. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Sylvan Carotid was a standard all-star for a long time in the Gruul, like the Gruul Ramp deck. That deck was crazy too. But there's tons of good stuff in here. It's just your traditional ramp deck, and you get to jam threat after threat. It's kind of like a Tron deck if you're familiar with Modern. It's kind of how these decks feel.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think there's some good options in the sideboard too. Emrakul the Promised End, probably exactly for this kind of matchup, can bring in some of the small ball stuff as well. Things like Courser of Crewfix and Tireless Tracker. A lot of times the way that the control deck's going to try to approach this match is by just countering your really big payoffs. They don't care about you ramping. They're going to counter all your big spells, and then they're going to go on to win the game. That gets harder with things like Ulamog and Worldbreaker, but overall, that's a lot of times the control deck that's how they want to approach it. Now, if you're slipping under some of those counter spells, with things like Tireless Tracker and just kind of overworking the control deck's resources, that's a nice approach to take. And maybe you don't want as many of the mana creature stuff. But we'll see. I'd have to imagine there's quite a few upgrades that Carson can make in the sideboard, depending on how hard they want to go on the creatures. I'm sorry.
Is that a Rurik Thar, the Unbowed in the sideboard over there? That card has killed me more than any card, I think, in the history of Magic the Gathering. I've died to that card so many times. I have to get this off the screen. That card is a beating against control decks. That to say the least, that is cards a beating against control decks. So.
Oh yeah, it's beating against a lot of decks. I mean, think about it in the Phoenix against the Phoenix deck too. It's like, you want to cast a Treasure Cruise? It takes 6. Card's incredibly impressive. Almost certainly going to be here as well.
Oh. All right, so we're going to jump over to the Esper control deck here, and it looks like Raja's actually playing a Yorion on the board too. So this is an 80 card deck, which I totally missed that in the beginning. There was tons of things going on, but this is a 80 card deck. So That's pretty good. There's 4 Aether Gusts in the sideboard. Those are all-stars in this matchup.
Yeah, I have to imagine those are slam dunks.
Yeah, those are very good. Other than that, I mean, it's so weird because these Vanishing Verses are actually probably horrible.
Yeah, a lot of colorless stuff. Worldbreaker and stuff like that you'd love to exile is actually colorless thanks to Devoid.
Yeah. These Othakaya is probably not great either. It's a game plan, I guess, with your Sky Noodle, but other than that, I think you're just like on counter spells and thought seizes to try and close the game out. So we'll see how it works out here. And we're getting ready to game number 2. They got about 20 minutes left in the round, so hopefully they're able to get the last 2 games in.
Yeah, that win from Raja with how long that game took. Got to be pretty happy about his position there. At the very least, might lock up a draw just due to these games going so long. And that might be even more of an argument for Carson to bring in things like Tireless Tracker just to get the games over with early. Maybe you could just cheese them by some removals by Roger taking out a lot of his fatal pushes and other removal spells and stuff like that. But that's kind of hard to do given that a lot of your ramp is coming from mana elves. So like the removal spells aren't bad like they are against Tron. They're still finding targets against the mana creatures. So that's probably not even that good of a plan. So Carson's gonna have to find a strategy to get underneath the counter spells and removal spells from Raja, especially with maybe a little constricted on time.
Sure. I think I saw Tireless Tracker actually in Carson's opening 7 there, so that's quite good. In the face of like these weird removal spells like Blood Chief's Thirst and Fatal Pushes, that's a pretty good one to have. So yeah, looks like a pretty solid hand there for Carson.
Gotta be happy with his spot. Raja taking a mulligan. Gonna take a look here. Does he like his 6?
That one doesn't look very good either, honestly. But sometimes just gotta keep these kinds.
just keep some cards. I don't know. We got an answer to turn 1 elf. That's a start.
There is a
got a Godless
there is
Shrine,
a
got a
thought.
Fatal Push.
Yeah, there is a thought seize, but that's I believe it's a Fetid Pools coming in to start it up.
That's very true. Castle Garenbrig into Sylvan Keratin. That's the mana dork you want against this deck. Doesn't get hit with Fatal Push, Vanishing Verse, or any of those.
100%. So this one's pretty good, and Raja holding on to that thought seize.
Interesting.
Gonna wait the maximum time, it looks like. So that's an interesting play. So Carson plays that. I believe that's Arch of Orzhaka is the name of that card over there. Plays that before playing the Tireless Tracker. Might be a small misstep there.
Yeah, an interesting sequence. Maybe respecting the card's censor. That's the only thing I can come up with that I think would maybe dissuade you from casting your Tireless Tracker before making your land drop. And here is a follow-up Elvish Mystic for your trouble.
Aether Gust. That's a good one. So that goes back.
Gonna put that one
on the bottom there.
On bottom. All right. Let's see, maybe Carson has his mana tied up for the next few turns. We'll see what Raja can assemble.
Yeah, I think
looks like an Odawara as the land for turn.
Fatal Push. That's a good one. You gotta hope that Carson doesn't have a 5th land and a Cavalier here.
Yeah, that would be a really good one. Cavalier able to put big, powerful threats back on top when you kill it. Not really what the doctor ordered. Looks like Nissa's Pilgrimage, the card that is cast here. It looks like Carson didn't. Sorry, go ahead. No, sorry. It's another Cultivate effect. This deck supporting, I believe, the full 8 Cultivate effects that are legal in this format.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like Carson would have missed the land drop there. So, but I believe that they do have a Cavalier of Thorns in hand, as well as a World Breaker. So some big payoffs coming down the line. Just gonna have to dodge, dodge some counter spells, but that's probably fine.
Yeah. Does find red mana. Notably, that was missing. Oh, well, outside of the Sylvan Keratin, but it was missing in the land base prior to this Nissa's Pilgrimage.
All right.
Wait, no, Nissa's Pilgrimage can't find mountains.
Right, you can only find a forest, right? Do we need to pause this game?
You can only find basic forests. I thought it was worked like Cultivate. I literally was calling it an additional copy of Cultivate, and that it has a little bit bit different text. As here comes the Thoughtseize,
Yeah, we're
Worldbreaker,
trying
and
to pause.
Cavalier
We're
that
trying
you
to pause the
mentioned.
match. Just a second here.
Okay.
So I radioed down. We're gonna try and make sure we can get to this point. So it looks like we got it paused here in just a second. So we'll make sure we sent the judge down there to make sure that this happens. All right, so let's bring up Nissa's Pilgrimage real quick. How about that? Let's bring that card up here in a
I
second,
think that's valuable.
and we'll fact check ourselves here before we go any further. So Nissa's Pilgrimage, yep. So let's see, yep. So it's forest cards, not a mountain. So we're gonna make sure we get that all solved.
Even with Spell Mastery, you still only get access to more forests. Now, easy mistake to make, given this copy does also support 4 copies of Cultivate, and that one does find any number of basics. A very easy mistake to make, given that you're on the full 8 copies of this effect. However, important to note the difference. Now, of course, there's not even red cards in Carson's hand, so, definitely kind of takes off the table the idea that this is in any way malicious. Cavalier of Thorns and Worldbreaker, the 2 cards that Roger was looking at off the Thoughtseize. So this should be corrected pretty easily. Get all that swapped out, or whatever necessary fixes need to be done. Our judges will figure out the appropriate fix for that. But in the meantime, this, I think, game looks to be going pretty well, even after the Thoughtseize for Carson, right? Like the Thoughtseizes was staring at 2 good threats.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is, again, it's kind of like the Tron matchup where it's like you have all your lands in play, you've accelerated a little bit, and now you just go like hammer, 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 and hopefully one of them sticks. You don't really care which one. Obviously, some are better than others, but you just got to hope that one sticks and can go the distance. Like this Worldbreaker is one thing though, where it has an on cast trigger, so it's quite good. It gets to put Raja back again, another land. There's a lot of things that go on. A lot of these cards have on cast triggers, so those are pretty good. And just needs to refuel. Again, Cavalier Thorns does a great job about that, though.
For sure. I like you calling out the Worldbreaker. Being good against counterspells. I mentioned during sideboarding that the control deck often wants to beat these ramp decks by countering the ramp cards, right? You don't want to try to answer them once they're in play. A lot of times the big, powerful spells do a lot when they enter play. So you're going to get 2 for 1, 3 for 1, to maybe even more by those cards if they are able to enter the battlefield. So against the ramp deck, a lot of times the control deck wants to just answer them with counterspells. But these cast triggers, like you mentioned, get around that. You still get your value even if the spell is countered. And with the Arch of Orazca, the Worldbreaker is even more effective, even if the Thoughtseize comes down.
Yeah, Arch of Orazca is a good one. That's I've seen it as a one of in several of these decks. It's kind of like a filler card and whatever. You can play a longer game with cards like that, which is nice for these ramp decks that kind of they run threats into answers and they can refuel a little bit, which is a nice little boon to have. So.
Exactly.
Sounds like
nice land. If you need to play a colorless land to return Worldbreaker, that's the one you want to do it with, because it fills that niche in this matchup where you're going to have the mana, you're going to have the permanence, and drawing those cards could be the critical cards you need in order to swing this matchup. So nice one for Carson to already have in play. And even if the Worldbreaker gets Thoughtseize, maybe he's interested in sacrificing a land and returning it, and just start the train of that. Start working through all the stuff.
Yeah, Worldbreaker has a lot of hidden text on it. I remember the first time I did that, I brought it back from the graveyard. Someone's like, "This card does this too?" I'm like, well, yeah. You got to just keep reading. Like once you read the first 2 sentences, you got to read the 3rd and the 4th. So
the hidden
looks like
reach
we're back.
is what that card gets accused of a lot of the time. A lot of hidden reach.
Yeah, looks like we're back here. Cool. So pretty easy fix. You just swap out the mountain for a forest. We rewind back to that point, and now we're back to the point where Raja is putting a Omen of the Sea on the stack. Is what it looks like. So nothing crazy or out of the ordinary there. That's a pretty easy fix.
Have to agree with you for sure. A very easy fix, and once again, no red cards cast, so no a ton of learned information or whatever. Omen of the Sea still happening. See exactly where we're going to choose. Carson might have priority here.
And there's that Worldbreaker we talked about. destroy
Yeah.
that fetid pools. Come in for one. I like it. Rumbling.
Warbreaker is going to exile fetid pools. Going to go ahead and rumble in for 1 damage. Thoughtseize is going to happen. Going to take care of the Cavalier of Thorns. We're going to go ahead and pass back.
Is that Rurikthar? I think it's Rurikthar. Oh, man.
Oh, man. Well, we still have the Sylvan character to cast that one, even though we can't grab the mountain. So here comes Rurikthar.
Bonk. You're not casting a spell.
Here's a hit for 5.
Yeah, good luck casting a spell the rest of the game.
And we were talking about how Carson needs to close this game quickly, and boy, does Rurikthar do that. Roger's going to pick it up, and we have a very quick game, too.
Yeah, so, I mean, everything went Carson's way there. Just, able to play ramp spells. So there was a Sylvan character, there was an Elvish Mystic unchecked into the Nissa's Pilgrimage, and then you just play your 7-drop, and you play your 6-drop, and Raja's like, well, I have Omen of the Sea, and it's about it. So
I guess.
Yeah, and a Thoughtseize. So pretty good stuff for the ramp deck. It's going to be tougher for them on the draw, I would assume. But anyways, it's cool to watch decks like that be able to perform even against control decks, because I think there's like some misconception that the ramp decks just get slaughtered by the control decks all the time, in like these kind of formats, and I don't think that's necessarily true.
Yeah, it's interesting. You made the comparison to Tron earlier on, to this deck to Tron in the modern format. And I think it does have a lot of that same similarities, where Tron is actually pretty good against control decks, even in modern. There are some spots where both players can interact, but these cast triggers, like we mentioned on Worldbreaker, like we mentioned on Ulamog, and even the Emrakul out of the sideboard, these Eldrazi cards being able to have cast triggers that give you your rebate, or at least some amount of value, even if your card gets countered, is a big part of swinging the matchup towards Ramp's favor and away from Control's dominance in this matchup.
Yeah, I'm with you. And there's even I think there's some of the what it called, Spirit of the Dragon Lord, or whatever the card's called, where you can sacrifice a land and go get another replacement. If it gets countered, you can still sacrifice that land, dig through your deck, find another threat, and then Control has so many counter spells, especially like Roger's deck. They only have so many, and they have to draw them, so you got to make them have them. And I think it was pretty good there for Carson. So let's see what we got here in our third and final game. There's a Rurikthar in hand. I'm never mulliganing that hand if I'm Carson.
You're just addicted to the Rurikthar. I thought you weren't a forest guy.
I'm not. That card just kills every control player ever. There's no way that Roger doesn't take this card.
All right, no way he doesn't take the card has been called. All right,
I mean, look at the clunker. Look at the rest of the little 1/1s. But I mean, you can counter Rurikthar, but that's so sketchy.
I mean, it looks like Oath of Nissa, Cultivate, and 2 elves among the mix. Could see counter. Yeah. I could see taking like the Cultivate card provides a lot of ramp and some additional card advantage.
Yeah, Cultivate's the only other card I can see taking here. I don't know. Could be wrong.
All right, we'll
definitely
we'll
wrong.
See.
Chose
the Elvish Mystic. Llanowar Elves not quite good enough to be Thoughtseize. Got to choose that Elvish Mystic instead.
Yeah. That's good.
All right. Well, signals that Raja might have a removal spell in hand for the second elf. Gonna go ahead and deploy it anyway. You got to make him have it. In case he doesn't, it's gonna look really good. Looks like Vanishing Verse gonna take care of the second elf effect.
Yeah, you got it. All right.
Draw step, second land, maybe Oath of Nissa, looking for another elf. Really looking to overwork Raja's interaction.
There we are.
Get a great look at that. Looks like Shrine of the Forsaken Gods. That card, I believe, makes additional mana after you have 5 lands, kind of like a Temple of the False God.
You get double colorless if you control 7 or more lands, I believe it is.
And only to cast colorless spells. A lot of restrictions on this one compared to Temple of the False God. Maybe they learned their lesson. Still good enough to show up here in Pioneer. And we have Cultivate. Going to sacrifice Malevolent Hermit. Going to counter the Cultivate.
I mean, look at Raja's hand, though. It's like land and a Fatal Push. And there's this, and I think it's just a fairy, but there's a Rurikthar, man.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, Teferi going to come down before Rurikthar, I think. Card does cost less mana, so we'll see You know, if Carson can get some pressure in play to answer this Teferi prior to it hitting the battlefield, Raja done a good job keeping the board state clear. Maybe looking to disturb Malevolent Hermit as a blocker.
Okay.
Here's a Godless Shrine.
All right, you're on to hand.
Untapped. Oh, no, we're going to buy Yorion instead. All right. Very reasonable. Shrine of the Forsaken Gods. And here is Elvish Mystic.
Oh, big pickup there for Raja. Big pickup.
Oh, yeah, that Fatal Push is crucial. Keeping the board clear, then sticking it to Teferi, able to start drawing cards, getting the mana advantage that Teferi provides, and realistically getting ahead of this Rurikthar that you keep talking about. Very important.
There's just so much mana in play. It's so much mana. There's no red source for notable, though. For
no red source for Rurikthar quite yet. However, I believe if he makes another land drop, no, he needs 2 more land drops. He needs to make 2 more land drops and then can basically play any colorless card in his deck. That includes Emrakul, Ulamog. Is that the 4th shrine there too?
It is the 4th shrine, yeah.
Holy cow. Yeah, definitely has the colorless creatures covered. So, you know, this Teferi drawing a lot of cards, doing its thing, but if Ulamog comes off the top, maybe all that work just gets undone in a single card.
If there's an Ulamog here.
All right.
Here comes the Hermit.
A little bit Benevolent Geist, the backside of Malevolent Hermit, going to make Raja's cards, non-creature spells, uncounterable. 2/2 flyer also. There's land number 6. And Wandering Emperor on instep, that threatens to start the beatdowns.
That's a great one. That is definitely a great one. You're going to need an Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger here, like, right now.
Yeah, definitely right now. And even then, you know, maybe the Flying Hermit can get through for enough damage. There's a look at the lovely Planeswalker we got to see from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. First Planeswalker with Flash, I think? Not necessarily sure on that, but I'm pretty sure. And if it enters the battlefield this turn, can activate her loyalty. At any time you can activate an instant. Put counters, give first strike, make 2/2s with vigilance, and exile tap creature. Very powerful upgrade to a lot of these control strategies. We've seen it show up here in Pioneer and some in Modern.
Those cards were not very good off that memory deluge there.
Oh, I think they have to be bad for Carson to have a chance, because remember, Carson looks to be incredibly behind, but something like Ulamog does threaten to fix the problem. And a resolved Ugin can do the same thing. Just like sweep the entire battlefield and suddenly you're back in it. Let's see what Carson's top of the deck will grant him.
It's like Tireless Tracker. It's a start, you know?
It is a start. It's a start. We have lands to play, can activate some clues, and if nothing else, even if it gets killed or answered with Teferi or whatever, you can at least start trying to find your big, huge, colorless monsters with the clue that you get. Gonna go ahead and crack that clue right away.
Well, that's an Oath of Nissa. That's pretty good, actually, right there.
Yeah, Oath of Nissa. It's a little cantrip that can help find the big monsters.
Oof. Raja looks like they picked up a Thoughtseize, though, so that's kind of brutal.
Interesting to see the Oath of Nissa not deployed there.
Yeah. Maybe worried about a Thoughtseize. You try and do it all in one shot.
There's no more Hermits. Thoughtseize going to happen. Yeah, I think you might be right. Going to go ahead and take the Oath of Nissa. Maybe you don't want to give Raja the information of what big monster there's access to.
Yeah. It looks like there's an Absorb now in Raja's hand, so got Ugin the Spirit Dragon covered.
Yeah, Ugin the Spirit Dragon's covered. It looks like Ulamog or Emrakul, the only real outs. Teferi, of course, can tuck itself. Go ahead and get rid of that one. Lots of other available plays given the amount of removal that Raja plays. So Emrakul, probably good enough. Ulamog, maybe good enough. And outside of that, not a lot of extra draw steps that Carson can take to find those cards. Yorion going to go ahead and be deployed. I think that might allow Wandering Emperor to go ahead and activate again on instep. A neat little trick.
Yeah.
And if you flicker the Benevolent Geist, does it come back as a Malevolent Hermit? Can we get an extra counterspell for our trouble?
That's funny.
Looks like the answer is yes.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. It's a neat little trick. Heads up play from Raja.
Yeah. Yeah, and this Fatal Push is able to happen now because permits have left the battlefield.
Well, I thought if Malevolent Hermit, or specifically Benevolent guys, left the battlefield to go anywhere but like hand, maybe just be graveyard. I don't know. I trust Raja to know how it works. He's the cards in front of him.
Sure.
Malevolent Hermit. Yeah, what's Benevolent guys say there? Yeah. Would be put into
a little too late.
Ulamog. There it is.
Man.
Hello. What do we got? Ulamog can exile to Fairy. And the other Planeswalker. Going to go ahead and counter that one. That's 2, 4, 5, 6 plus Sky Noodle. That is enough for lethal. So Raja looks like he's got this one in the bag thanks to the Absorb off the top. Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. No longer good enough.
Yeah. Different over that Ulamog right there is not legal in this format, I don't think.
It is not.
But we got a hand pick there. So, yeah. Pretty good. That I thought that match was pretty good, back and forth, and you can see the power of Planeswalkers and all that stuff, and when you're able to Thoughtseize, which is probably one of the most busted cards, maybe of all time. I'm just gonna say it. You can pick apart what your opponent's doing and leave them with the scraps, and they just weren't good enough there at the end.